It's before 8 here on the program. Great to still have you with us. Now, we are on Child Protection Week, you do know that, and today Save the Children International is launching the new annual global report called Stolen Childhoods. The report says 1/4 of the world's children are denied a childhood. It also looks at the factors that contribute to children that denial, and these factors include extreme violence and conflict, early marriage and pregnancy, child labor, poor health, I beg your pardon, and prohibited schooling. We are now joined in studio by Helle Thorning-Schmidt. She's the former Danish Prime Minister who became Denmark's very first female Prime Minister. Currently, she's the CEO of Save the Children International, and of course is here in the country. It's so lovely to have you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Good. Please give us a summary, and I can imagine that there's so many findings out of this report, but if those that stand out for you, what are they?
Well, first of all, today is the International Day of the Child. It's Child Protection Week here in South Africa, and it's a good week to talk about what actually ends childhood. Because all of us, we want our children to grow up with love and care and development and nourishment and education. But for too many children, actually 700 million children, 1 in 4, as you were saying, the childhood ends too soon. And what we have done is that we have identified 8 childhood enders: child marriage, malnutrition, poor health, that means that children are dying before the age of 5, not access to school, all these things, 8 child enders, and we have ranked 172 countries according to where does childhood ends too soon, and which countries are the best at granting children the childhood that they have the right to have, and of course that they deserve. All right, well, let's find out who they are. I mean, my selfish question, and the question South Africans would be asking themselves, is where do we fit into all of this? South Africa does not come in high enough, in my opinion. South Africa is number 107 out of 172.
That's all. That is heartbreaking.
And South Africa is a great country, should come higher. And the 4 things that ends childhood in South Africa is that children don't finish their education. Too many children do not finish level 12. Too many children actually die before the age of 5. It's too high for Africa. There are too many children that are malnourished in South Africa. And the 4th one, which I'm really sad to see of South Africa, is that it is the child violence here that brings South Africa to the number 107. There's too many incidents of murdering of children, too many incidents of severely hurt children in their domestic life, and that actually brings South Africa in this bad place. It also means that in South Africa you have the highest level of child homicide in the whole of Africa. It's actually the highest country outside Latin America and the Caribbean. So this is something that I think, looking from the outside, that South Africa should perhaps sit up and look at the child protection and have an environment for children that are less violent.
You know, I mean, the things that I specifically heard you didn't mention is the childhood rape, children being forced into prostitution, young girls, child-headed households. These are issues that we deal with so frequently here in South Africa. I mean, that steals your childhood away immediately.
Absolutely, and unfortunately we have not been able to put sexual violence into our index because we don't have the figures to do that. But of course, if you added sexual violence, that is a clear childhood ender, and what we are seeing is that often sexual violence is connected to homicide, child homicide, and very severe violence against children. And basically this is a cultural change. It's a discussion we have to have with each other. Do we accept violence in the life of a child? Do we accept that they get beaten up in their homes, or that there's a very high level of child homicide in South Africa? I'm not here to criticize. I'm just putting the figures as we have found them, and we are seeing that even in South Africa, childhood gets stolen from children. They have a right to a childhood. They have a right to live free, protected from violence. They have the right to survive their 5th birthday and not die of diseases we could have prevented, particularly in South Africa. And these are the things that still bring South Africa down.
Yeah, I mean, It's heartbreaking because I was chatting to you a little bit before we started the interview, saying that you've come at one of the worst times in South Africa, because we always, every day we're waking up, we're seeing another child disappearing, another woman being raped, and they all go missing, and their bodies are then found, whether they are burnt or beaten to death or found with packets over their heads. I mean, this is the reality of what we're living with every day. But when you're talking about a family structure and childhoods disappearing, how do you expect people to grow up and expect anything better?
See, that is the thing. I think we have to think about how is this actually not only an investment in the one child that we want to have a good life and to learn, how is this also an investment in the whole society? And you can actually put figures of how much is lost economically if you accept violence in a society, and Save the Children in South Africa have tried to do just that. So I think it's important to remember that violence is not just the 1,000 children that get murdered every year in this country. Underneath that, you have so much violence going on, and you have to tackle this. This is a cultural change, and that's why we have to discuss it openly with each other. It is something we can change, and that is the good news. It's going the right way in South Africa, and it's something that we can change in this country as well.
You talk about violence causing a financial loss in a family. Perhaps you can elaborate a little bit on that. I've got my ideas in my head, but perhaps they're not the same as yours.
I mean, violence creates a lot of different effects that we have to understand. If there's too much violence, we see that in countries where you have a lot of child violence, in Colombia, Mexico, children will not go to school because they are afraid of being shot or being caught in a gang incident or something like that. Of course, the economy loses out if a child does not go to school. Every child, a child does not come into school, the economy loses out. If you have a family structure that doesn't nurture a child and make sure that child is got the right food every day and goes to school, then you also lose out economically. So I think you can actually, you can cost it violence against children. You can of course cost that half of the children in South Africa do not finish level 12. So these are important things as well. And I don't want to talk about this in economic terms, because that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that children are living with violence. Too many children are living with violence. And the most important is that we can change this. This is a cultural change. This is about talking about it. We run projects here in South Africa, in Save the Children South Africa, where we talk about positive parenting, how to bring up children without having an atmosphere of violence in those homes. I'm going to see a project later today where we actually try to teach very, very poor parents about positive parenting and how you can bring your children up in a positive environment instead of a harsh, violent environment.
In terms of we look at this report, and we've spoken about South Africa and how dismally we're performing, and that it is heartbreaking, especially because this is just purely about children and their lives and their childhoods being stolen. Who's sitting at number one, and how do they do this? Who is really, where would I want to bring my children up? Where's that place?
Well, it's easy to say that, but the ones that are number one is Sweden and Norway and Finland. That comes in as some of the European countries. And I'm sad to say that still we find the 10 bottom are African countries. Not that progress have not happened on the continent and in this region. Progress has actually happened. And I don't want to leave this studio to say that it's not possible to create a change. It is possible to create a change, but it will only happen if we really make a concerted effort to create that change. We have promised the world's children that we will leave no one behind. We have given them rights, that they have to have right to health, education, they have to have the right to be protected. And I think every government have to ask themselves, what can we do to make sure that we are granting children the rights we have promised them? It is not, and just make sure that we look at those indicators. That's my hope for this report. Look at the indicators for each country. What is bringing the country down, and what can we do systematically to change that? It should not be the case in South Africa, for example, that children die before their 5th birthday. I think South Africa, even though I know there are problems here, can do better than that. And in terms of the protection of children, I am convinced that South Africa can do better than that.
This report, just I'm going to wrap this interview up now, but the report, do you have any high-level meetings? I know know that you're going to be visiting your projects here in South Africa, but in terms of governmental meetings, sharing these findings?
Not this time around. This is the first time we are doing this report. We have never actually looked at 8 childhood enders and ranked all the countries in the world, but we will keep doing it. This is something that we will do every year on the day of the child, and what we are hoping is that everyone will look at this and think, can we not do a little bit better for our children? Make sure that they have the rights to have a childhood where they are loved, cared for, get the education, not get married, do not have babies when they're adolescents. Can we not do this a little bit better? And that is, we want the world to sit up and look at that. And that is governments, of course, but it's everyone. It's all of us who perhaps have to change our ways a little bit.
Yeah, listen, really eye-opening and a very interesting conversation. Thank you for visiting us. Good luck during your travels here in South Africa. I'm going to put my script down because I have to ask you a question before you go.
Yeah.
You remember you became the internet sensation last time you were here.
So I was thinking, when is she coming with this question?
I have to ask the question. That's why I'm putting the script down, because the producer didn't put that there. But I have to ask you, where is that picture? Now, the picture I'm talking about, do you remember this picture? It was a big selfie. Yeah, there you go. I didn't even know they were planning this, so there it is. It's that picture that you had David Cameron and Barack Obama sitting next to you and you took a selfie. Where is this picture?
This is big. This is the memorial.
No, I know where that is.
Oh, you know.
Do you have it developed? Do you have it hanging in your office?
I have it, and it is on one of my old phones. The phone I took that picture with, and I'm the only one who has that picture.
That's the only one who has it.
David Cameron does not have it. Barack Obama has seen it, but he doesn't have it. So I'm the only one who's got that picture.
This picture was taken at our former president Nelson Mandela's memorial. We were there broadcasting one of the saddest days in our country. But this is a picture that suddenly went viral afterwards. And I don't know if it was the picture, I think it was the reaction from the First Lady at the time who was watching on.
No, she was absolutely cool. She is an amazing woman. And
she's amazing.
And sometimes you can get a picture where someone looks not smiling, and everyone knows that. Sometimes you just get a bad photo, but she was absolutely fantastic. I had a lovely day with her, and it was an amazing day. We all came to South Africa to honor Madiba. He's one of my big heroes, and I think for all of the leaders that were there, he's still one of our big heroes. It was an amazing day, a packed stadium, people playing music and being generally celebrating the life and the achievements of your great leader.
It was an opportunity you couldn't miss out on, and so I'm going to take my opportunity. I'm not going to miss out on this one. Let's take a selfie as we wrap up the interview. Okay. There you go.
Nice
Thank you for visiting us here in South Africa. Helle Thorning-Schmidt is the CEO of Save Children International, and it's so great having you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for chatting to us. It's a pleasure. I mean, that picture was...